On May 2nd, 2025, just one day after Ryan's fatal shooting, during a police pursuit over a stolen vehicle, Rodney Hinton allegedly drove his vehicle directly into retired Hamilton County Sheriff's Deputy Larry Henderson, killing him on the spot. Near the University of Cincinnati campus. Courtroom tension reached a boiling point when Rodney appeared before Judge Tyrone Yates. On May 6th, a man identified as Hinton's relative broke down in the courtroom, yelling, "I just want to see my brother," before being forcefully removed by deputies. The courtroom was packed with both law enforcement officials and Hinton's family members, creating an emotionally charged atmosphere. Prosecutors described Hinton as a clear and present danger, citing his mental state after he had reportedly watched body camera footage showing the exact moment his son was gunned down. In a dramatic moment, the judge ruled that Rodney Hinton would be held without bond, emphasizing not only the violent nature of the alleged act, but also the volatile, emotional condition of the defendant. According to testimony from Detective Carl Beebe, Hinton made no attempt to brake or swerve his vehicle. He accelerated straight toward Deputy Henderson, strongly suggesting the act was intentional. That alone was enough for prosecutors to argue this wasn't a case of reckless driving or emotional breakdown. It was murder. Defense attorney Clyde Bennett painted a very different picture. He acknowledged that Hinton was emotionally distraught, but argued that this was the result of extreme trauma and grief. Bennett made it clear that his client was not in his right mind when the incident occurred, hinting that the defense may request a mental competency hearing soon. "We are dealing with a man who had just witnessed a video of his child being shot by police," Bennett stated. "Anyone in that situation could snap." The ripple effects of this case have extended beyond the courtroom. A GoFundMe page created to support Hinton's legal fees was taken down due to violations of the platform's policies, which prohibit raising money for individuals charged with violent crimes. However, supporters have since launched a new campaign on Give, Send, Go, which has reportedly raised more than half its $6,000 goal. The debate over whether Hinton deserves sympathy, support, or swift justice continues to divide the public. As this case develops, all eyes are on the upcoming grand jury hearing, scheduled for May 12th, where additional evidence may be presented and new charges considered. At the same time, investigations into both the fatal shooting of Ryan Hinton and the death of Deputy Henderson remain active. It's a tragic and emotionally complex story with no easy answers. A father who lost his son in a police shooting and a law enforcement officer killed in the aftermath. No matter the outcome, this case is a painful reminder of how trauma can ripple outward, destroying lives in its wake. Whether Rodney Hinton's actions were calculated or the result of emotional collapse will be at the heart of the courtroom battle in the days ahead. One thing is certain, this is a case that will leave lasting scars on everyone involved. The emotional undertow of this story runs deeper than a single courtroom scene. For many observers, Rodney Hinton Jr. represents something much bigger than one man's actions. His son Ryan was only 18 years old when he was killed by police, a teenager, legally an adult but still young enough to be considered a child by any parent. The footage of that shooting, reportedly viewed by Hinton shortly before the alleged vehicular assault, likely compounded the overwhelming grief he was already experiencing. It wasn't just the loss of a son, it was the manner in which it happened, the unanswered questions that followed, and the painful reality that justice for Ryan might take months or years to fully unfold, if it comes at all. That kind of grief, combined with the feeling of powerlessness, can become combustible. And for some, Hinton's story evokes the question, when justice feels out of reach, what happens to those left behind? At the same time, the death of Deputy Larry Henderson has shaken the law enforcement community to its core. A retired officer with decades of service, Henderson's life came to a violent end in a moment that was as unexpected as it was tragic. Those who knew him describe him as a devoted public servant, and his death has intensified feelings of fear and resentment among police officers already under scrutiny. For them, Henderson's death feels like a targeted attack, not just on a person, but on the very institution they represent. The case has widened the already existing gap between police and communities of color, further complicating efforts to build trust and accountability. Now, with Hinton being portrayed by some as a grieving father and by others as a cold-blooded murderer, the courtroom has become a stage for a larger cultural and institutional clash. In many ways, this case is a perfect storm of modern American conflict, race, policing, mental health, and trauma intersecting in real time. Each detail, whether it's the body cam footage, the courtroom outbursts, or the conflicting portrayals of Hinton, adds to a growing narrative that is as complex as it is tragic. News cycles often rush to label people as either heroes or villains, but the truth here defies simple categorization. Rodney Hinton may be a father broken by grief. He may also be someone who committed an unforgivable act. The court will ultimately have to decide how much of his behavior was intentional, how much was emotional collapse, and whether those two ideas can even be separated in a case like this. As the May 12th grand jury date approaches, public interest in the case shows no signs of slowing down. Protesters, community activists, and legal experts have all weighed in, with some demanding reforms to police use of force policies and others calling for harsher penalties for anyone who harms officers. Meanwhile, Hinton remains behind bars, his future uncertain, his past now shadowed by two deaths that occurred in less than 48 hours. What began as a personal tragedy has grown into a public reckoning, a sobering reflection of how quickly grief can turn to rage and how justice, in the eyes of many, still feels elusive, whether this ends in a conviction, an acquittal, or something in between. The emotional and societal scars will linger long after the final verdict is read.